Welcome back to my garden. My short films tend not to be focused on current events. I think there's quite enough of that out there already. So you probably get your fill elsewhere. But this weekend, when events unfolded at the Oscar ceremony quite like they did, well, I knew I had to say something about it. Now, if you read the title before watching this, let me make it very clear. I never went to the Oscars, obviously. So to make the statement that I know exactly how Will Smith might feel, I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, well, obviously it's not exactly true. The time I got to hit someone in the face at a black tie event was actually a kite flyers dinner dance in Lima. Nothing more auspicious than that. Well, that was quite an event in our little social circle. So, although it's not exactly the same, when I tell the story, I think you'll see that there's more than a few passing similarities. What happened? Well, it was the 20th anniversary of the Kite Flyers, and to celebrate, we were having an event at the Lima Cricket Club, and the captains who happened to be in town, that was a sort of a prestigious position within the club, were all going to say a few words over dinner, and then we'd party on into the night. Except there are rather a lot of captains who happened to be in town at that time. So quite frankly, there are a lot of short speeches, and even if everyone had managed to keep to just 5 minutes, it probably would have dragged on too long. But we didn't. So this turned into something of an interminable hell. A bit like that video of the Golden Globes when Ricky Gervais keeps on tapping his watch and going on about 3-hour award ceremonies. And one of the punters couldn't take it anymore. Now, for whatever reason, I'm going to call him Heckling Bob for the sake of anonymity. And Heckling Bob started to heckle. And frankly, it was a little irritating. We were doing the best we could, which may or may not have been good enough, but it was neither here nor there. People were speaking, and you might as well give them their few minutes of fame and let them just ramble on. Besides which, you had plenty of lovely food, beer and wine, which I suppose was partly the problem. And maybe there were other things that were part of the problem, with this being Lima in the year 2001 and all that. But be that as it may, Heckling Bob was heckling rather vociferously. And it started to get more than get on my nerves. It started to get under my skin, and eventually the red mist descended. It must also be stated that, for the record, that Heckling Bob was sitting right next door to my partner for the evening. I was on the sort of head table as one of the foolish dignitaries giving a speech, and the lovely Anna was sitting next to Bob. Now, she wasn't, I wouldn't say my girlfriend at that point. I'd taken her there. Why? What possessed me? I don't know. Did I think it would impress her? I can't believe I thought that, but well, I wanted to enjoy the evening, and I couldn't think of anyone I wanted to enjoy the evening with more than Anna. So there she was, sitting next to Bob, rambling on in a rude and unnecessary fashion, and listening to a bunch of men of varying ages rambling on about footballing exploits, most of which you probably didn't understand and weren't that amusing in the first place. Something had to give, and it was me. I sort of strode out. I can't remember what was the final sort of red rag moment, and punched Bob in the face. Now, this wasn't a good thing to do. And this is not going to be a video where I try and explain away or exonerate Will Smith's slap. I mean, it wasn't a good thing to do in so many ways. I actually quite liked Bob. You know, maybe he'd gone too far, but it was quite understandable. And some of what he was saying may even have been witty. I can't remember. But that was the first reason that I wasn't, I wasn't too wise in my decision. I mean, I guess the second one was that by any measure, I'm not really a fighting kind of guy. And I think Bob, one of those surfing types, probably would have made mincemeat of me if push had come to shove, rather than just one punch and then everyone said, calm down, calm down. Now, there were people in our club who would have handled this far better than I, or far more effectively than I. You know, punching someone who wasn't quite ready to be hit while they're sitting on a chair. I can think of at least one person who would have knocked him right off the chair. And I don't think I did too much damage. The damage actually was more potentially for me psychologically, because I felt a sort of remorse, even though everyone said he had it coming and, who can blame you? But I knew I'd done the wrong thing. And in that regard, I think Will Smith feels exactly the same. So, brother Will, you and I. And also, it suddenly occurred to me straight afterwards that if I was trying to woo young Anna, that wasn't the way to go about it. In the end, things turned out quite well between the two of us, and we had our little moment in the sun before I left Peru. She was a fantastic person. We're still in touch, and the last time I saw her, maybe 5 years ago, we had a great coffee and reminisce of the old times. And she didn't mention that incident. So all has been forgotten. But the Oscar excitement brought it all rushing back. And it got me thinking about something. A lot of people are talking about, should he, shouldn't he? It's the wrong thing to do. What would an appropriate punishment be? I mean, can you really take his Oscar away? That seems, frankly, a little bit ridiculous. And people have said that, public figures like Will Smith should be able to handle that type of situation much better, even if it was a joke in bad taste, and then they move on. But that's actually the point that I got to thinking about. We dismiss it as a joke in bad taste. But perhaps we're looking at a wider phenomenon that we need to start reconsidering, how we use the very term joke. I mean, I know comedians see themselves under pressure, from all angles, and they complain about the woke crowd and political correctness gone wild, and no subject is off limits if you're a comedian. And I see where they're coming from, but I think one of the things that I think we do need to stress, if you're a comedian, is that it should at least be funny. And I was thinking a little bit about this in the context of my time as a school teacher, and I was involved in the sort of disciplinary side. I had a position of responsibility, and that's the first recourse of the, well, it's not the first recourse of the naughty 13-year-old boy who's punched or verbally bullied someone. The first thing is, of course, to completely deny it ever happened. But once you've pinned them down, and they start getting a little blubbery, they will say, well, I was only joking and he's my friend, and all of that sort of stuff. And And not just little children resort to that. Even here in our wonderful Brazil, our sometimes in the spotlight president has made a few remarks. I'll just pick one, not entirely at random. When asked what he would do if his daughter married a black man or came home with a black man, he said, well, she wouldn't, because she's much better brought up than that. And when challenged about the quite obvious sort of racist nature of that remark, I think he first denied he ever said it, and when pressed further with evidence that was beyond refutation, he said, but I was joking. And at that point, what I would like to do, I mean, and we never really did it with the children, because what we wanted was an apology and to move forward, but I'd certainly want to ask Jair Bolsonaro, or for that matter, Chris Rock. Okay, I don't have much of a sense of humour. You know, maybe I'm a little too thin-skinned, a little too prickly. Explain to me the joke. Why is it funny? What is funny about it? In this case, on the weekend, for those of you who've somehow managed to miss this, the joke was that she might be able to star Jada Pinkett Smith, and Will Smith's wife, might be able to star in G.I. Joe 2. And this is funny because in the G.I. Joe movie, Demi Moore, who is playing, and I think it might even be a true story, or maybe it isn't, I don't know. She's playing a woman going through Navy SEALs sort of boot camp training, and she shaves her hair to kind of be one of the lads, or for whatever reason, I don't know. And Jada Pinkett Smith is also shaven her head. Of course, in her case, it's because she suffers from an autoimmune disease, alopecia, and her hair started coming out in large clumps in the shower one day. And it seems to me that these things are funny, these award ceremony jokes, because people are willfully doing ridiculous things with their own lives, or their lives in and of themselves are, as a superstar in Hollywood, are ludicrous. And so we prick the balloon and we have a joke at their expense. But it does seem that it needs to be kind of your own decision. I mean, I came across a bit of comedy on YouTube recently, and this guy was talking about how he always goes into the 7-Eleven opposite his flat. And he goes in there always ordering the same thing, Mountain Dew, whatever that is. Maybe it's kind of like Sprite. To the extent he goes there so often that the die-hard staff call him the Mountain Dew man. And one day, you know, he went in for his order of Mountain Dew, and they were explaining to a new worker that he's the Mountain Dew guy. And the sort of punchline to the whole joke was, which was kind of funny, well, why don't they call me the neck tattoo guy? And of course the comedian has, and I mean, he's tattooed everywhere, and he has these enormous tattoos on his face and on his neck. And I think it's an interesting sort of joke, and it works because, first of all, it's self-deprecating. And there's also a sort of meta level to it, that we make jokes about certain things and other things we kind of avoid talking about because we don't want to offend people. And what falls into which camp? I mean, it's an interesting joke. I don't think talking about Jada Pinkett Smith's baldness is at all funny in the same way. But maybe it is indicative of the times we find ourselves in. And to all those comedians out there, I would say, I take your point about political correctness, and comedians should be able to make jokes about anything, but pick your targets and make them funny. And to Will Smith, who is apparently very contrite, I would say, my friend, I have been there, and 20 years later, I can look back on that and I think I've moved forward, and I hope you do too. And I hope you're at the Oscars again sooner rather than later. Anyway, that's it for this week. I trust you're well and your lives are filled with joy. And until next week, from a very non-violent garden, ciao.